This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manassero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manassero, and this is a show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes, type in Old Dog, spelled D-A-W-G, find our podcast, and subscribe. Well, today we've got a very interesting show. We have a gentleman who is, I would say, crushing it right now in real estate investing, and specifically in the multifamily arena. His name is James Kandasamy, and he is a real estate investor, sponsor, and syndicator who has been in multifamily acquisitions and asset management since 2015, only the last 3 years. He has special expertise in finding value-add multifamily opportunities. He has identified, underwrote, and overseen the acquisition process of over 800 multifamily units worth over $56 million, and also ran the execution of each business plan in the portfolio, averaging 20% IRR. James has a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Science University of Malaysia and an MBA from the University of South Adelaide in Australia. Well, James, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Hey, Bill. Happy to be here and happy to be interviewed.
Let's start. We are glad to have you. You know, this is funny because, I've been just fascinated with the fact that some of the most successful real estate investors that we've been interviewing over the last couple of years, many of them are engineers. And I think that is just fascinating. I know it's definitely a numbers game, but it is very interesting. And I definitely want to hear more about your story and your background and how you got involved in real estate investing.
Sure. I can start with introducing myself. So we live in Austin. We buy our deals right now in San Antonio, and we have started to look for deals in other markets as well, just as a strategy to diversify. Currently owning like 800 units across 5 different properties. We started in single family, rentals, and we did some flip. We started with 13 single family houses in 2013. Out of that 13, 2 of that were flips, and after that 2 flips, we promised not to do any more flips again. It's just too much work.
It is.
But we did like 11 rentals, which the first 5 there was some cash out of pocket, probably like 8,000 to 10,000. But the last 6, it was almost zero cash out of pocket. Primarily, the strategy that we deploy to buy our deals in single family and multifamily, it's basically summarized as buy, rehab, reposition, and refinanced, and repeat, right? So it's BRRR, which is pretty
BRRRR method, right?
BRRRR method,
pockets. Yeah,
exactly. It's it's pretty famous in bigger pockets. So we started with single family BRRRR, and then after that moved to multifamily BRRRR. Exact strategy. We just learned from single family and moved on to multifamily 3 years ago. So we primarily focus on value add deals. We don't buy the cash flowing day one, no upside deal. We don't mind buying a cash flowing day one deals, but you need to have upside where we can put in capital and improve the operations and increase the NOI of that property. So that's what we specialize in. One specialty that we do is we are really good at finding off-market deals. At the same time, we also do the whole pipeline, acquisition financing, and also we do property management. We have our own property management ourselves. We do our own rehab management as well. So we do everything so that we can control the entire pipeline.
God, that is fascinating. Well, I'm going to take you back to something you said in the beginning that, and I assume when you started investing, were you working in a full-time job, a W-2 job at the time?
Yeah, exactly. So I only resigned like 2 months ago after buying. I had my full-time job until I bought like 340 units. So only 2 months ago when I closed my 460 units, in fact, we closed last month, I resigned because it's becoming really fun. We're making really good money. At the same time, I need to give a lot more attention to it. And it's not only me, it's me and my wife, right? So two of us tag team and do all these deals.
Oh, that's neat. Now, you mentioned one thing I latched onto. You said, well, I started with 8,000, but after a while, I wasn't putting my own money into it. Now, can you explain that a little bit more? What did you mean?
So, no, it's not like I don't put in money. So we do put in money. All the deals that we do, we never had a deal where we don't put any money in. But with the strategy of double closing, which basically means that first you buy a property, you put in money, you put 20 to 25% down. For especially in single family, you put 20 to 25% down, and then you buy it with the hard money lender or any private money, and after that you refinance it into a conventional Fannie Mae housing loan. You basically have a delta of like 5% between the hard money lender and the normal conventional housing loan, so that 5% would pay you back a lot of your down payment that you put in, and that's how you becomes zero money. In fact, some of the houses were paying money back to me because of that strategy.
Interesting. Now, when you were building up your single-family rental homes, did you leverage those to move into multifamily, or did you try a different approach there?
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't have capital in the beginning, all right? So we only had like 50,000 to start with for this whole real estate when we started, and we refinanced our house equity to take out that 50,000 and start investing in single family. So yeah, with that 11 to 13 single family that we did, we built up equity of like almost 400,000 within 2 years. So it's very, very strong.
Man, oh man, that's amazing. In 2 years, you picked up 400,000 in equity.
Yes, and I still have the house. After 2 years, I still had the house. I had 400,000 of equity. We refi all our single family like almost 3 times, just taking out money and putting it into multifamily. So we put a lot of that 400,000 into multifamily, our first acquisition.
Amazing. I mean, that is what an amazing. So 50,000 brought you to over 50 million 3 years later. 56 million. I mean, that is wow. I mean, that now, had you had any prior business experience, or have you always been an engineer or in engineering?
Well, I'm an engineer, so I do a lot of analytical thinking. Everything is being calculated. Sometimes it can be analysis paralysis, right? But I also have an MBA background, which is just by education, right? But we have tried, my wife and I, we have tried a lot of businesses before coming to real estate. We did online education program. We were trying to build an online website. We were trying to sell books that I wrote myself, some workbook, for students. We tried a lot of things, and nothing really worked except for this real estate, because it seems to be where our passion are. It's a lot more fun, and it complements our skills very well.
God, that's great. Yeah, that's one thing I can totally relate to, because I'm a lot older than you are, but when I was in Haiti, one of the things I was looking at, what kind of business can I start, that can kind of carry me through retirement? And I tried the online businesses. I tried the reselling the Amazon stuff through eBay and all these different things. But it was really real estate the same here that just said, hey, this has got staying power. This can really work.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that I analyze a lot, and I always was thinking about real estate. I mean, first was rentals. Even if you buy a normal rental, just buy day one. If you buy it right, it cash flows almost like 7 to 9% without doing anything. But if you do like double closing, then you almost become zero money down, right? Which means your cash and cash goes to 50 to infinite, right? So.
Right.
But in multifamily or any real estate, I mean, you are the top of the chain. You are the guy who's buying the asset, right? So because you are the top of the chain, you can make a lot of money, right? Reselling other people's stuff. You are just on the bottom of the chain, so you don't make a lot of money. So That's how I see it.
Now, how did you happen to step into real estate? You were on these online businesses. What drew you into real estate?
Well, someone told me once that he's doing rentals, and I was thinking, rental doesn't make sense. And I'm a guy who like to make a lot of money. I mean, of course, everybody want to make a lot of money, right? But how fast can you make the money, right? And he said he was doing rental, and he said he buys rental, one rental every year. And I start doing the calculation. Not bad, 9% cash on cash on a single family. It's not bad. And I've tried stocks, and it's just not my nature to invest in stocks. Stocks need people who want to buy long term, and you need to have patience, and it plays with humans fear and greed. And I read a lot of articles that 99% or 95% of individual investors are not making money in stocks. Actually, the big institutional guys are making money, and I realized I'm not doing stocks because I'm not in control of it. So that's why when we started looking at rentals, 9% return was good, and and I just heard somebody in radio, and they were talking about like $5,000 down and you get a house, and I started learning that methodology, and that's where I found out about this double closing strategy, the burst strategy, and I know it can make a lot much higher cash on cash.
Oh, sure. Everything you're buying, even the single family homes, are in San Antonio?
Yes, I started in San Antonio. Yes, correct. Even though I live in Austin, but San Antonio has been where I started with single family and moved on to multifamily over there.
God, that's a great area. I've heard amazing things about San Antonio right now. It seems like a pretty hot area, in fact.
I don't know. When I was buying in 2013, it's very strange. Everybody's in Austin. They don't like San Antonio. Not to say they don't like. People say, that's a slower town. Austin is much more cooler town. Prices appreciate crazy. Even you buy a hut, it triples, 3x in 2 or 3 years, right? Whereas San Antonio was like a slow and steady cash flow. But the latest stats from U.S. Census Bureau shows that among all the states nationwide, San Antonio has the highest in-migration, right, for past 1 year.
Wow, so San Antonio, huh? Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening, but all my multifamily is above 95% occupied, so that sounds good.
Oh, yeah, sounds really good. Gosh. Well, neat. Well, you obviously learned from experience. Now, do you still have all of your single family homes?
We have. I mean, every time a tenant move out, we sell it. So we have 4 more left out of 13. We sold the remaining. We only have 4 left, and if someone moves out, we will sell it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it just makes more sense now that you have the multifamily to be able to have it all under one roof as opposed to a bunch of different roofs, right?
Yeah, it's just more scalable, and you have staffs working for you, and it's just much easier once you establish all your systems and processes.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And the fact that you're managing your own property, it's just you and your wife. No, I mean, you obviously have staff, right? That especially for the property management side, I would imagine, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have like 18 staffs right now. Yeah, it's only me and my wife, and sometimes we are like thinking, hey, should we? I mean, we are planning to hire some corporate staffs, but right now 800 units is just between me and my wife. There's no partners. That's it, 2 of us.
Now, just looking at your role, and I can see that your wife. It looks like I just from looking at your website that
Mm-hmm.
she oversees the property management part of it. So, where is most of your time spent?
My time spent on looking for deals and investor relationship, I would say looking for deals is much more apparent right now because I have a good investor base, and as you know, at this circle of the market, there's a lot more capital looking for deals. So I'm focusing a lot on finding deals, whereas my wife is, she's focusing on turning around the property and doing the property management. She's right now the regional for all the property right now.
And she's overseeing rehabs and that kind of thing too.
Yes, correct, correct. Yeah, she's very strong in that. I'm strong in analyzing deals, networking with sellers and brokers to find deals. And that takes a lot of time, right? So
Oh, sure. Oh my goodness. So one guy, that's a lot. How many deals do you look at in the course of a week on an average?
cost a week, probably 4 to 5. I mean, we look at a lot of deals, but not all deals, worth analyzing, right? So especially if the deal is being blasted out on an email, I mean, that's like at the bottom part of my bucket. Most of the time, I don't even look at it, right? But if a broker or if a seller start calling me, and you can see from their tone whether it's really an off-market deal or not. So I usually do some kind of smell test for all the deals that I see, and I probably will analyze like 3 or 4 deals per week. Um,
How do you sift them? Sort of you mentioned a smell test. What key factors, key ratios do you look at right off the bat that makes you decide this is a stay or a go?
well, I mean, first of all, I would say, okay, let's say if an email blast, right? So that basically, if I have the time, I will look at it. And let's say if the email blast comes, I would look for, is there a value add component? Is the broker selling some, doing some marketing about some value add? And I would say, what kind of value add are they talking about? If the property is already rehab, like, 50, 60%, you are basically coming in and trying to do another 50%, right? Which is not much of value add, right? The second thing I would look at is when was the property last bought and sold, right? If somebody is trying to sell a property which was just bought 2 years ago, basically the guy is flipping the property, right? The seller is trying to flip the property. So that also goes low in my bucket list because they have a high loan amount, very less equity. So the chances of you getting it at a good price is going to be low, right? So that's these two criteria would at least take off a lot of things from my plate. The third criteria I would look for is basically I would ask what's the whisper price, right? So whisper price, then you divide by per door, but that is not it, right? Price per door, okay, yeah, it's not like you have to look at price per door in relation to the unit mix or the square footage of the units, right? If it's too high compared to the average property on the market, then of course you're gonna delete that, right? You're gonna just put it in the bottom of your bucket list. The third thing I would look at is once I go through these 3-4 criteria, then I look for the location, right? So I'll go to Trulia and just put in the location and see the crime map of that area. If it's high crime, I'm not gonna even touch it. So these 3-4 things would eliminate a lot of deals already, because a lot of deals that being blasted out by brokers either is in a bad area, bad high crime area, or area that doesn't have potential, or it's just overpriced. So otherwise it wouldn't come on an email blast, right? So 95% of the deals in multifamily is done off market, and even the 5% that done off market, out of that 5%, 95% of it is really not worth it to really look for, even for experienced guys, because most of it is not going to work.
So
Right.
those 4 or 5 deals that you actually do analyze, do all of them come from brokers?
Well, right now, yeah, I mean, I've been working with a lot of brokers, but in the beginning, I did a lot of off-market strategies to find deals, and off-market strategies gives you the best yield in terms of the how good is the deal, but it's also a very slow process, and there's a lot of work involved. But I think it's the most important way, most most efficient way for any newbies to start. But for an experienced guy, it may not be the efficient way, right? So I think I would say for experienced guys who have done deals, who have built track record and credibility, they can work with brokers. But for newbies, you want to do off-market strategy because brokers are not going to be listening to you.
So what are some of your top off-market strategies when you were just starting out?
Well, when I started out, so we are talking about in general real estate off market, right? So I started with single family. We started with yellow letter marketing, which is basically a letter that you send to a seller saying that I'm interested in buying your property in this location, right? So you are hoping for out of 1,000 letters you send, you probably get like 5 responses, which is okay. And out of 5 responses, you do one deal, right? And that's how I was able to build like 400,000 equity within 2 years in my single family. Right, because you find people who doesn't want to lease this property, who doesn't like brokers or agent, they just want to sell to you, and it's not like it's easy as you just send a mail and everybody's going to respond to you, right? It takes time to really. First, you need to go by certain frequency, like every 3 months, every 6 months. Second, of course, when they call you, you have to have that listening skills. You have to have that empathy. You have to be able to listen to their story, and everybody have their own story. They want someone to listen to them, right? So, but at the end of the day, you want to figure out what is the problem that you're trying to help them solve, right? So, once you're able to figure this out, you have good skills in listening to people's problem, and you'll be surprised on how much people are willing to sell a property to you if you have that skill, because they think now you are someone they know, someone they are willing to trust and sell to you.
That's great. I like the whole approach to looking at it as solving problems too. That's a great way to look at it when you get those calls. It's not a hot deal to make some money, but here's a problem to be solved. I like that.
Correct. Yeah. Every deal that we bought, we solved some kind of problem. It's you have to be creative enough to solve some problem, and to be creative, you just have to learn what is real estate, how the transactions being done, how does the whole title work is being done. There's a lot of creative ways in real estate that you can make deals happen.
Oh, sure. Now, as you transitioned into multifamily, now, did you have any kind of training, or did you have a coach, or were you involved in any kind of programs, to learn how to do multifamily?
Yeah. I have 2 programs that I was involved. One was a group in Texas where they taught me a lot of nitty-gritty part of multifamily. The key thing that I learned from them is basically, how to make sure that, you do a really good job in property management, right? The second group or second person I learned is someone from New York who taught me how does the Wall Street of commercial real estate think and execute deals, right? So these 2 groups combined with my single family experience of finding deals, resulted in me coming up with a unique approach on my own to buy multifamily and to reposition them.
That's great. Now you went right from those single family homes. You had 400 in equity. Did you take that whole 400 and put it into your first multifamily?
No, I think in the beginning I put almost like 125,000 to buy my first 45 units.
Okay, gotcha. And now to find that 45 unit, did you use some of the same off-market strategies?
Not on the multifamily. Okay, so in single family, I did 2 things. One is just letter marketing. Second was text blasting, right? And cold calling, right? Cold calling was not very widely used, just because my mentor from New York was telling me that's it's going to take some time if you do cold calling, right? But it still works. Text blasting is something that I figured out myself, listening to some of the. I believe somebody mentioned it in one of the podcasts where they were doing it for single family, and I took the approach and move it to multifamily. So single family, I use text blasting and yellow letter marketing, whereas multifamily was on top of that 2 approaches, also cold calling.
Okay, gotcha. So was your first deal through a broker, or was it through your off-market, some of the other marketing you did?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, everybody's told me to go and work with brokers, and every time I talk to brokers, nobody really want to entertain me, right? So,
I understand.
I mean, these guys are business guys. They want to make 200, 300,000 per transaction, I mean, maybe more than that, depends on how big is the deal. But, and why they should be talking to this new guy when inventory is so low and even the experienced buyers are getting it hard to find deals, right? So my first deal, I bought it using text blasting directly to the sellers, and I believe I sent like 600 texts on that day, and
On one day, you sent 600 texts. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Now,
yeah.
now, how did you, for a multifamily, how did you get the owners' names? I mean, that's pretty difficult. A lot of times they're held by LLCs, and it takes something to find that.
Yeah, that's right. That's the key part of it, right? Um, So we found the owner's name using skip tracing tools. There's two skip tracing tools that anybody can use. One is called LexisNexis. The other one is called TLO. TLO is just TLO.com. So we found
The initials TLO?
TLO, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
TLO.
.com.
So we found the mobile phone numbers from there and start texting people.
Well, LexisNexis is not cheap. I mean, that's expensive, isn't it?
Both of these are not cheap, right? So it's pretty expensive. But I mean, as a guy who's committed to start, you have to figure out how to get deals, right? You have to think differently from everybody else, right? If you, I mean, it's not easy, right? So if it's easy, everybody would be able to do it. So I committed myself to think differently and try out different methods to find my first deal, and it did work.
That's great. That's great. Well, looking at, you've had a pretty short history so far here, but in that time, I'm sure there were things that didn't go exactly the way you wanted, and I wanted to kind of find out from you, what would you say, at least to date, what has been sort of your biggest mistake that you've learned from?
Well, luckily, my biggest mistakes are not yet done on multifamily yet, and sometimes that's a bit scary because I'm always worried about what you do not know until the market turns. That's when you'll know who's the guy who didn't do well in our underwriting. But my biggest mistake, we did a lot of it in single family, right? When we starting, first I didn't get education, and I tried to buy my first deal, thinking that, hey, I'm an engineer, I know a lot of stuff, I can calculate this. It's I would say ego or arrogance, right? So I didn't lose. I mean, I didn't lose big money, but probably like $3,000 to $4,000 just because I almost bought a bad deal and the appraisal came so low, but the seller was trying to sell. I mean, the wholesaler was trying to sell, and I realized I was just not educated well enough in buying that deal. So I would say my biggest mistake was didn't do my RANCOMs properly. Yeah, my RANCOMs or my sales comp properly, and it happened in single family. Other mistakes are, using wrong contractors. As we were like trying to reduce our cost of rehab, we like to use our subcontractors. GCs are expensive, but you need time to really weed out a good contractor, right? And you'll find out people who coming and, let's say a plumber coming and doing plumbing, and you see you're doing major rehab. Hey, I can do tiling, I can do roofing, and we start, we like this guy to do plumbing, and we start giving them roofing and tiling, and next thing you know, he starts subcontracting to someone else, and the whole budget goes off. The whole work is like have to be redone, and we lost quite a number of money on that. So now we have learned how to do a good contractor management and how to do a good brand or sales comp. I'm very, very picky on that.
That's good. Do you have a full-time team or guys that you just use on a regular basis?
We don't have a full-time team, but there are teams which has followed us from our single family just because we budget well, we do a good job in paying them, we make sure everybody get paid, and that's the important thing in the contractor world, right? So they appreciate that. So they are coming and working with us just based on contract basis. There's no we don't directly employ them, but they like working with us because we are good paymasters and we take care of them and they do a good job for us.
That's great. What would you say your biggest success to date has been?
First three deals of all of them are very successful. So I've done like 5 deals up to now. The last 2 deals we just closed last month. But my first 3 deals, I mean, in fact, my first 2 deals, we have bought it at a really good price, and my wife have turned it around within 1 year. So we basically refinanced out almost 117% for both deals within 12 months. So imagine this:
Wow.
you're buying a property, all the passive investors putting in 100,000. After 12 months, you take back that 100,000 or more than that, and you still have the property. So what does that mean? That means it's a commercial real estate with zero down.
Amazing. So you're buying properties, you have investors, but instead of selling the property, you're doing a cash out refi and paying investors back and then holding onto the property?
Yeah, we hold on to the property, and we have to be very careful when we cash out, because if you cash out too much, your mortgage payment will erase a lot of your cash flow later on, right? So we like to cash out. First of all, the bank most 99% of the time doesn't allow a cash out within 12 months, right? Most banks, most agency loans, Fannie and Freddie Mac, they don't allow that, just because a lot of people are not doing any work to the property, but because the market triple or double, and they want to cash out, right? So Fannie and Freddie or any agency loan, they know you didn't do work, right? So in my case, I have to write a lot of stories, write a lot of PowerPoint slides, and tell them all the work that we are doing to justify why we increased the value rather than market increased, right? So that's how we do our cash out.
What percentage cash out are you usually looking at then so that you don't get the mortgage too high?
We like 75% LTV.
Uh-huh.
Like my first deal, our LTV right now probably at like 70 or 65%. So even after cash out, right? So we're still pretty good, right? So we have a lot more meat on the bone to do rehabs, and but we already like take out almost all the money out. My second deal also will be like 70 to 65% LTV, because when we refinanced 2-3 months ago, which is like 12 months after we closed on the deal, when we refinance at 75% LTV, but our interiors are only like 50% done, right?
Mm.
We took the cash out, we allocated a huge sum of money for continuing our rehab, but we did pay out almost all of the money to the investors.
Great. Would you know what kind of IRR they're getting?
It'll be above 30 to 40%.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy, right?
That's really great. Wow.
And the reason why sometimes people cannot employ this strategy, a lot of people ask, why not the other guy do it, right? So there's few reasons why they do not do that, and the most dominant reason I see that they don't do it is because some people like to sell after a short amount of time and get the money out. Two reasons. One is they get a big chunk of money back, right? But you also have to pay taxes, right? But you get a big chunk, you get a full equity out, right? Second is they probably already run out of their capital rehab money, right? So basically they don't have any more money to rehab it, right? So they say, okay, let's sell, right? So that's
Right.
another reason why people sell. The third reason could be, sometimes the way the syndicators are structuring the deal is basically it's back end loaded or front end loaded, right? The fees are, when they sell, they get more fees. Okay, now let's sell, right? And hit IRR. And sometimes they just want to hit their projected return. However, I'm a long-term buy and hold guy, and the best strategy in buy and hold is which balances between cash flow and high IRR is basically to refi your invested capital as quickly as possible and let it cash flow for long term.
So what's your typical buying criteria then?
Typical buying criteria is any deals need to have upside in it, right? So I don't mind buying a deal at low cap rate. But you have to go and analyze the deal and figure out why the cap rate is low. It could be just the management is bad, or just sometimes the financials are wrong. They add all kind of capitals into the P&L and made the whole cap rate low, and all kind of reasons can be there just because the current management is not doing very well, right? Since we do A to Z of the whole pipeline acquisition until property management, we know the details, right? We know how, when we look at a P&L, we can figure out very quickly what's wrong with the property, because I look at P&L every day of my own properties, right? And I look at a lot of other people's P&L. So dissecting the P&L becomes a very, very critical skill that any good value add syndicator need to have, because
Sure.
that's where you go and fix the problem, right? As I said, we all are solving some other people's problem to make money.
Now, are you buying under market? Each property. Do you insist that it be under market, or can it be consistent with whatever the market price would be?
No, it's consistent with the market price. It's
Okay.
consistent with the market cap rate. The thing is, if the market is 6% cap rate, but there's upside in that deal to the spread of the upside, let's say you can bring it to 8% cap rate in 2 years, that could be like $4 or $5 million upside, right? But you have to put in the work. So we buy at market cap rate, but we put in the work either by rehabbing and increasing rent or reducing expenses. And that's where you see the spread, right? Once you go in and fix up, what's the spread of the cap rate, right? Pre-improve versus post-improve cap rate, and that are the deals that we look for.
Gotcha. And what about the structures themselves? I mean, are you looking at garden types of apartments?
Yeah.
Pitch roofs.
Well, I mean, for me, pitch roof or flat roof really doesn't matter. I mean, I don't do chiller system because chiller has their own problems. Good location. I mean, just low crime rate, because usually we want to turn around properties quickly. So we need the higher paying renters to come in. I mean, of course, I would love 1980s and above. That's what I'm trying to target. But if there's a deal which comes in 1970s or 1960 and it's a really good upside, we will go and buy it and, fix it up and turn it around.
Oh, that's great. Are you mainly in C areas, B areas, A areas?
No, C and B.
C and B? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether we can find deals in A area. If I find it, yeah, that's fine. But the key criteria is you need to have an upside. Right. I need to be able to see upside in 2 years by putting in capital and our own effort into it.
Gotcha. Well, we have a lot of listeners that are 50 plus in age. Some of them are working, but they're approaching retirement, and they're really, looking at the numbers, looking at what are they going to do in their retirement. Are they going to have the income to maintain the lifestyle they have, to be able to do the kinds of things they want to do in their retirement? And then there's those that are already retired, and they're either realizing that they can use some more cash flow in their lives, or they can, looking at their nest egg, they want to be able to get the best return. So what kind of advice would you have for those folks? A lot, they're obviously listening to the show because they're interested in real estate investing as a possibility to be able to meet those needs.
Investor needs versus the deal types, right? There's two different things. One is investors who need to multiply the small amount of money they have. The other investor who's retired and want to just do passive, they want to just get cash flow, right? So the type of deals that these two different investors going to look for is going to be different, right? You can't invest in any deals that shows up into in front of you, right? The investors who need to multiply their equity, they can plan out to look for syndicators who do value add deals, because value add deals, it may not cash flow day one, it may cash flow like 1 to 2 years from then, but it multiplies your equity. You may get 300-400% in 3-4 years, right? So people who want to multiply the cash amount and don't need cash flow today, they should look for value add syndicators, right? The investors who has a huge amount of cash and don't want to take risks, and this is their nest egg and this is their passive investment, they need the cash flow today, they need to look for syndicators who are doing low risk, cash flowing day one kind of investment, right? So it's two different types of investors versus two different types of deals. So it's they need to match as where they are in their investment cycle versus the type of deal that they're getting into.
And what about those that are actually looking at possibly buying rental properties?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's a lot of people who, I mean, right now the market is so hot, so its inventory is so low. But if you're able to start networking with people, and find that seller who are motivated to sell, who are willing to sell, they can absolutely buy deals, even though they start with small number of deals, like 10 units, 20 units, they should just go for it, right? So, or even if they want to syndicate, if they want to go big deals, you can do syndication, right, where you can raise capital from private investors, and do large deals. And I mean, from what I know, the 50 plus people have a lot of advantage because most of the sellers are also 50 plus and they feel connected, right? So, um, and the other one is just the sheer amount of experience that 50 plus investors have is not, you can't match it with somebody new who's starting in the industry, right? And people have gone through many different real estate cycle, right? A lot of newbies, including myself, has not gone through that cycle, and sometimes that can be a bit scary.
Oh, sure. Well, looking at yourself, looking at where you are now, I mean, only 3 years into it, and you have an incredible portfolio. What are you looking at in the long term for your company and your real estate activities?
So we are looking at how to scale, right? So it's always a puzzle for me, right? How do you scale? Who do you hire first, right? Right now we're trying to figure out who do we hire for our corporate staff? Or do I hire an acquisition manager? Do I hire an operation manager? Or where do you solve the problem, right? So we're trying to hire corporate staff for us to scale gracefully into larger deals. But I'm thinking, is there a way that you can grow much bigger? Quicker, but you do not want to. You want to make sure you still do a good due diligence in your buying criteria and your underwriting, right? So, yeah, that's scalability is what I'm looking for. How do you make sure that you are scaling gracefully?
And you want to grow, definitely. It sounds like so.
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's always has been like at one time I was trying to see, okay, I can find. I almost gave up on multifamily because it was so hard to find deals, and all the deals are just too overpriced, right? But I realized that that's where my mindset has cheated me. So I said, okay, I need to change my mindset, right? So there are absolutely tons of deals out there, and I start getting deals after that.
Have you looked at other types of commercial, like office or retail or triple net, that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm an analytical guy. So um, I did analysis on asset classes that has been performing for past 15 years, right? So, for example, I look at the IRR reports, which is basically Integra Realty reports, which is all, there's like 30, 40,000 of appraiser nationwide. They submit all their reports to this company. I think they believe this company is the one who gives the designation for the appraisers, the MAI designation. So they compile yearly reports and it's free to download. Anybody can go and download that. And I took that data for past 15 years, and this is where my mentor came in from New York. So he taught me how to analyze markets and how to analyze asset classes, right? So I started looking at it. Is there a better thing than multifamily or not, right? So I look at Austin, I plot in like 5 different asset class, like office, industrial, multifamily, and 2 other things, which I forgot, right? Some of it was self-storage. And I looked at it and I realized actually everybody thought, in fact, everybody was thinking like a lot of gurus tells you, right? Multifamily is the best investment, do it, right? So I realized that's not true. That's not what the data is showing you. The data is showing office is doing much better than multifamily.
Interesting.
Right, but then I realized, hey, actually, yeah, it depends on who are you listening and what's your circle of knowledge is. If your circle of knowledge is just within this group of multifamily guys, of course you're going to think multifamily is the best investment, right? Because that's the only thing that group knows, right? But once you expand your network to a different group outside of that group, then you say, oh, okay, that's a different thing too, right? So it depends, right? So it depends on who are you learning from and all that. For me, I did look at office, but never really learned from it. I didn't have a mentor. I started multifamily, I believe, to specialize in one asset class, and I specialized in multifamily. Multifamily is doing very well, just because of all the shift in the market, especially the millennials moving to become renters, and in general, a lot of people are becoming renters. And I also looked at like mobile home parks, which is a really good asset class, high cash flow asset class. Very good business. Is a what you call I would say is a hidden treasure in terms of all the asset classes. Is mobile home park, and even self storage. I didn't learn a lot about self storage, but I know it's a really good investment as well. But I still stick to multifamily just because you can do big deals with multifamily, and you can turn around quickly, and it's a very solid foundation and support from the government for multifamily. So I just continue with multifamily just because it's really doing very well, and I specialize in it.
Gotcha. That's great. That's great information. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Time has zipped by here. It's a little frustrating for me because I have a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about. So we're just going to have you back. And
Sure.
But this is the part of our show where we do what's called our wrap it up session, where I ask you a series of quick questions, and you respond with quick answers that we can share resources with those listening that you've found valuable. Are you ready to wrap it up?
Sure.
All right.
Let's go.
First question. Favorite real estate book?
Favorite real estate book? Probably The Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, that's a lot of our favorite books. Yes, good choice.
Yeah.
How about your favorite general business book?
General business book, Magic of Thinking Big and Think and Grow Rich. It's more of a mindset rather than a business, but I think it still qualify into that.
Sure. How about your most valuable website for success?
Bigger Pockets.
All right. Favorite app?
Favorite app is Dropbox app.
Yeah,
I have
everything
everything over there.
Too.
I have everything over there.
Definitely. How about favorite quote?
Well, I would say maybe whether you think there's deals out there and whether you think there's no deals out there, you are right.
I love it. It's whatever you think, right?
Yeah.
I love it.
And there's a lot of people in your audience think that there's no deal. Actually, they are absolutely right. But
and the ones that think there are plenty of deals, they're
yeah, they are right too. Yeah, it's all in the mindset, right? So.
You got it. That's so true. And our final question and a wrap up is, if, let's say, you lost absolutely everything, I mean, all your assets, everything, and all you have left is $1,000 in cash, what would you do with that $1,000 to rebuild your real estate?
I would start my letter marketing again to build up, to have contact directly with the sellers.
The yellow letter marketing?
Yeah, yellow letter marketing. Just because real estate is full of inefficiencies in the whole process. There's so many people who has inserted themselves into the buying and selling process of supposed to be buyer and seller. There's many reasons for it, right? So if a buyer can talk directly to a seller and make a transaction happen, that's the most efficient transaction, right? Everybody gets a good deal, right? The seller get a good deal because he's able to sell at a price he wants without the hassle, and the buyer gets the deal because he get at a really good price direct from the seller without the market interactions. So I would start with my letter marketing.
Great idea. Well, gosh, James, this has been wonderful having you on. What just a wealth of information, and I'm just amazed at how short of time that you've been doing this. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Now, if there are people that are listening that would like to reach you, maybe follow up with you, see, find out about some of your investments, some of your properties, or whatever it may be, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
My website is Achieve Investment Group. Achieve is like achieving a goal. ACHIEVE, Achieve Investment Group. And my direct email is also listed there. It's James@Achieve Investment Group. They should definitely visit my website. There are tons of knowledge that I put in for free that it's there, and it's everybody's welcome to read it.
That's great. That's great. Do you have an analysis spreadsheet that you use? Did you create that yourself? Probably didn't you? Probably didn't use somebody else's.
I created myself, which is I am really proud of my spreadsheet because it looks for value add components of a deal. It does multiple loan and mortgages analysis. You can do it.
Great. You should put that up on your. Did you put that on your site?
Well, I have a tool on my website, which is not my advanced analytical tools, but I do have a basic back of the napkin tool on my website, and it's free to use. Anybody can go and use it. And even I do that just to look at, is there a meat on the bone for this deal or not, right? So it's a very simple tool. It's on the website. Anybody can go and use it. And there are a lot of people using it. I didn't know that until someone told me when it was down. They said, every day I use your tool and now it's down. Can you help me? And I was like, wow, I didn't know that.
That's great.
There's hundreds of people using that tool. It's free. It's very basic. There's a YouTube tutorial on it that you can see how to analyze multifamily. And it's a simple place to start analyzing deals.
That's great. That's great. Well, we have a tradition here, if you've listened to our show before, that all of our guests have to close out our show with their best hound dog howl. Okay, so I mean, you're from Texas, they got all kinds of hound dogs out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you ready for that? Have you been practicing, or is this going to be the first time?
I did practice a bit. I was just looking at YouTube and saying, what is this sound? I have a dog, but it's a Shih Tzu, so she doesn't make the same sound.
It doesn't howl much, huh?
Yeah.
Love it. All right, James, if you're ready, give us your best old hound dog howl.
Hopefully it's worth it. I can't do it.
That was good. That was kind of a cooing dog sound. That was good. That was good.
I'm sorry. I tried, but I don't think so. I'm gonna be good at it.
Oh, I think you did a great job. Well, thank you so much, James, for being on. We really have enjoyed having you. And gosh, I definitely would like to have you back because I see you just going places really quickly. And I think there'd be a lot to learn from your next phase of activities here. So
sure. Absolutely.
Got to stay in touch. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, I also want to thank all of our old dog listeners out there, too, for joining us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we greatly appreciate it. Please note, old dog listeners, everything presented here, including all the links that we have in the Wrap It Up section and his website, contact information, all that is available in our detailed show notes on the Old Dogs website at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog. You'll be able to find all that information there directly and look for the interview with James Kandasamy. Well, that's it for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.